can you really be someone's friend if you express that you like them and say, let's be friends? No. I think dating in our generation has become more like shopping than actual getting to know someone.
I feel like you can't get to know someone as a partner until you know them as a person.
It's not casual anymore. I'm making my thoughts clear to you, like, hey, I want to pursue you romantically, and if there are no problems, let's move forward to the next step.
The talking stage is casual dating, but I think that society is scared of the word dating because that implies that there's attachment and commitment involved, and people sometimes just don't want to, be tied down. Cool, but when you're talking to someone, in most cases, I feel like there's never usually explicitly saying, hey, I just want to talk to you, and I think you should only just be talking to me. Usually it's, hey, I'm talking to her, and I'm talking to her, and I'm talking to whoever, and I'm talking to whoever. That's casual dating. When you're getting to know other people, you are dating them casually. When you're interacting with multiple people romantically, you're vetting them for relationships romantically, you're dating. And I think that we're so scared to call it dating because people are scared of commitment, because dating means, oh, I'm tied down to one person.
I think dating in our generation has become more like shopping than actual getting to know someone. Because think about it, like, what do you do when you shop? You go on Amazon, you go on your app, you scroll through different articles of clothing, you see if it has the things you're looking for, if you like the style and the design, and then based on that you purchase it. And we do the same thing with dating apps, or even social media. Like, you go on, you swipe, and you basically evaluate whether or not you want to pursue someone based on the features that you do or don't like. And I think that mentality has made us afraid of commitment, because the thing about shopping is, especially when something's really expensive, you question whether or not you want it, because in your mind it's like, well, if I spend $300 on this dress, what happens if there's a better dress that I want, that I see, or a dress that I like more? And we've taken the same approach to people, where it's like, oh, I don't want to commit. And I know, because I've experienced this, where it's like, you almost like get so caught up in this mindset of like, you keep spinning the lottery wheel, hoping that you're going to hit jackpot next. And you don't realize that, like, you just have to make a decision.
Because I think that people are not trying to get to know people as people, they're trying to get to know people as a partner. And I feel like you can't get to know someone as a partner until you know them as a person.
And I feel like
that's why I think you need to be friends with someone before you start dating them, because you can learn a lot about someone like when you're friends with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like if I say to someone, which I will not because I'm going to commit a relationship, shout out Lyle.
Hello, yeah.
Period.
Anyway,
Lyle.
King. Anyway, if you're saying, oh, I feel like I just lost my train of thought.
Oh, he'll do that to you.
Okay. If you meet someone and you're interacting with them and you explain to them, hello, I'm trying to get to know you romantically, let's start talking, then I feel like it's easier for them to kind of pander to what you want as a partner. If you say, I'm into XYZ character traits and I'm into XYZ whatever, then that person might, or they're more likely to mold themselves to what you want, instead of showing who they really are as a person, because they want to get to know you as a partner. But when you're friends with someone, you get to see how people interact in stressful situations. What do they do when they're mad? What do they do when they're angry? What do they do when they're upset? Who do they talk to when they're happy? What makes them happy? I feel like you can get to know someone on a much more intimate level, platonically, than you can if you come out the gate romantically.
And that's why I asked the question, can you really be someone's friend if you express that you like them and say, let's be friends? No, because you're just presenting yourself. And I think there's two ways to combat that, because I don't think that if you find yourself in that stage, there's no hope. I do think, however, that if you find yourself in a place like that, it behooves you to wait a lot more and a lot longer to really get to know someone. And I think the problem is, especially, and guys will do this more than girls, because I think guys have more to gain from being with someone and not being in a relationship with them. And I think what people need to do a lot more of is like set the standard, like communicate essentially where they're going. And that's why I don't like a talking stage, because oftentimes what I've seen is talking stages are just uncommunicated intimacy, like with no goal. It's almost like we like each other and we're like in this space, And unless like you're both very mature, which isn't always the case, and that's no slight, because like we're people, we mess up, but you can get stuck in like a place where you're not going anywhere, and that's not a good place to be.
Yeah, talking stages I feel like really only ever work out if both parties like have communicated
That they want to be
legitimately
in a
what they
relationship.
want.
Yes.
And then they are working to that relationship. But I feel like that's not traditionally how most talking stages go in
And I think-
society.
I think that's not, I feel like that is intentional friendship. Like that's a friendship with boundaries for you and against other people, right? You don't even have to label that as a talking stage, right? Like other people don't have to know.
I feel like it might get blurry though, because if you're talking to someone, that implies romantic feelings are there, or
does.
romantic feelings are on the way.
Friendship is not monolithic. Like there's different levels to friendship.
Right.
It's like obviously we've been friends for 17 years. Our level of friendship is just not going to be the same as like someone that I met in college or something, right? Because there's different levels of friendship. And so I feel like it's the same with like relationship, like romantic wise, because really when you think about it, like your status realistically doesn't technically change until you're married. It's just different boundaries are going up, right? So even when you're dating, it's like obviously there's a title, but legally, like technically you're single. You do everything by yourself. You just are putting boundaries in place to respect the relationship that you want to grow. And I guess the technical way of saying it is it's a social construct until you get married. Like you're just agreeing with that person and the rest of the world that you're not going to do anything. And so I think that's why I think to me like talking stages are always so finicky, because unless like you've communicated, and I think that's a large problem. Like you said, you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people don't want to communicate where they want a relationship to go because they don't want a relationship. They just want company.
They want company that they can touch on. And that's so cool. That's so cool if that's what you want, but you have to communicate to the other party that that's what you want.
And who knows, like they might be down, like, you know, you never know. Like you may end up, but you just have to communicate that, because when you don't communicate that, you end up hurting people.
Right.
And you end up getting hurt. And it's just, I don't know. I wish someone explained that to me, because I feel like growing up, especially like in the Black Adventist community, like there's a level of things that no one's gonna talk to you about. Like you're just gonna kind of figure it out on your own.
Yeah, I never really had an official dating conversation with my parents and like what that would kind of look like. And it's like no shade to them, because that's just not something that really ever came up until I started dating my boyfriend. I feel like at that point, it's just kind of like, you know what this is. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you should know how to kind of govern yourself, and, you know, this is what it should look like, and this is, you need to make sure that both parties are respecting each other and stuff like that. But it was never a designated
Conversation.
dating conversation, ins and out, pros and cons, when you should, when you shouldn't.
We all had that birds and bees thing, but we never had X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, like it never really got past the birds and bees. It was just, okay, sex, but it was never really intimacy and dating with someone else. Like,
Let's break that cycle.
I think we should.
I think we need to, because honestly, like, I feel like a lot of people are figuring it out on their own, and they're either making mistakes that they can't reverse, like having a child, or they're just hurting themselves and hurting people. And I feel like without like guidance, it is really, really difficult to navigate relationships, especially if you do not know what you're doing. I've figured out that it's not healthy to pursue people if you don't know what you want years ago. And I was like, wait, like I had to figure this out. Like I had to figure it out in a very difficult way. Like, wait, if you don't know what you're looking for out of something, then you probably shouldn't get into that thing.
I think part of it is, at least from my experience growing up in the Adventist bubble, you get a lot of conflicting like sides to the narrative. So on one hand, you have people telling you, oh yeah, you know, this is what you should do, or this is what you should know going into dating. But then on another hand, you know, especially within like Adventist education, you know, you have friends and all of you guys are going through life at the same time. I think we underestimate how much influence like our peers can have on us. And so I think to an extent, a large part of the problem is that a lot of our peers are misinformed, and then in turn lending that information to us and informing how we act. Those older than us, like our parents, our aunts and uncles, you know, older cousins, older siblings, like older friends, may have said certain things. But then if you're inundated every day with, like from inundated every day with, this is the standard, this is what's cool, this is what it is, you know, then that's more what people are going to trend towards. So I think that's kind of where a little bit of the disconnect within, I think, the Adventist community in particular, or the Black Adventist community in particular happens, especially because here in Maryland, like, it's such a small, tight-knit community, you know, like, everybody goes to the same churches, the same Adventist schools, you know, same church league games, and then a lot of us go to summer colleges. And so you're growing up in the same circle, and not to say that it excuses, like, a lot of the ignorance that people have in certain situations, but just to say, like, I feel that a part of it is that because a lot of people are already misinformed, they just propagate that throughout their friends. You know?
I would even argue this happens outside of the Adventist bubble. Like, this is going on
for sure.
everywhere.
Because then you also have the conversation of dating to marry or dating for pleasure.
Yep.
And that's also really big.
Toss up in the...
That's what I'm saying. Like, are you dating this person because you want to marry them? Or are you dating this person because whatever? You shouldn't be dating this person if you're not going to marry them, because that's what dating is supposed to lead to.
When you don't understand the purpose behind something, like, you're gonna abuse it. So, like, if someone gives you a gift and you don't understand how to use it, you're gonna end up misusing it. Like, that's just how life works. This is just something that we don't talk about in our community at all. And not just dating, but, like, anything to do with, like, romance. And it's weird because, like, you wake up one day and everyone's like, well, where's your girlfriend? Well, where's your boyfriend? Or you want to end up alone for the rest of your life? But it's like leading up to that, no one ever talked to you
There was
about
no
it.
lead up.
And so what happens is you have a generation of men who are actually afraid to talk to women. And I've seen it happen at Oakwood, and it's actually so sad. When, like, you have people who are, like, actually scared of women. Like, they're scared. And then you have women that are, like, discouraged because they think men don't want them. But it's like, no, it's just the men here, no one encouraged them to talk to women. So they never develop the skills.
Or they don't know how to properly talk to women.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just...
You get hit on at campus?
Yes, that's just what comes with being a woman. I have been approached by men, and I have always hidden with I have a boyfriend, I have a relationship. Even when I wasn't in a relationship, that was always my go-to. Because I just feel like, leave me alone.
You liar.
I don't know. It's for the greater good. But after I hit him with I'm in a relationship, please go away. It's always your boyfriend will let you have friends. We can just be friends.
People actually use that line?
Oh my God. Yes. That's all. Literally, that's always what the next line is. Your boyfriend will let you have friends.
Like, going back to what I said about the community being small, because we're in such a small community, like, a lot of people don't realize what is and isn't appropriate in what context.
No,
Because
Ethan, this
certain
happens
things,
everywhere
no,
else.
I know it happens everywhere else, but I think you have to realize, in, like, today's day and age, I don't want to say, like, we're more isolated into bubbles. But it's more like a mind map. You have, like, your central and then, like, branching out. So I think part of the problem, firstly, is overinflated sense of ego. For one, like, I feel like we've become accustomed to a world where everything's about me and I, and so everything's about my perspective and the way I see things, and not really how is it being perceived by the other party, or even beyond how is it being perceived by the other party. It's just frankly appropriate. Because I think a lot of things, unfortunately, a lot of the things that I see being propagated in mainstream culture is quite honestly inappropriate for the time and, you know, the context. And so I think we've gotten lost, or we've gone away from the idea of what is and isn't appropriate in certain environments.
When you view someone as just an object to acquire, of course you're not going to respect it. It's also discouraging as a woman because they're and I'm not a woman, you know, I'm not a woman. We just got to make that clear. But I can imagine, like, it's very discouraging when you want genuine connection, but you feel like no one really wants that. And you feel like people are more interested in what you can give them and what you can do for them than who you are.
I think my brother and I have been, you know, fortunate in the sense where we've grown up with a sister, you know, in the sense where I think a lot of ways, like, growing up, you know, having a sister who's our age, and whatnot, that teaches you, in a sense, how to interact with women.
Okay.
Especially when it comes time, like, it's time to look for a woman. You know, what am I looking for? I know what I'm looking for. You know, and what it means to be respectful, what it means to do things like that. For me, growing up, there are just certain things that my parents wouldn't tolerate, or my sister wouldn't tolerate. You know, and she had that standard that she upheld, which in turn, like, I guess for Gabe and I, we learned that these are the same standards we should uphold ourselves to in our interactions with women. I think there are a lot of guys out there, a lot of gentlemen out there who don't hold themselves to the same standard. Because I think part of it is they have lack of experience. You know, the women in their life aren't forcing them to hold, and not that I believe that the woman should have to force you.
Right.
But I think that, you know, if there's a place where you see that correction needs to be made, there's no correction that's being made, you know, in the sense where I see some of the way people talk to each other, even at school, you know, and like, man, like, I can't believe like you were just like letting him talk to you. Like, that's kind of crazy to me, you know, that's like kind of disrespectful. Or, you know, she'd talk to him a certain way. I'm like, that's still crazy. And I think just that general sense of respect has kind of been lost. We grew up with you,
yes,
right? So there's a certain way that we've learned to treat you with respect and dignity. And like, we're not just gonna pop up off the cuff, like talking all crazy, like acting all crazy one day, because we know that's not how we were raised to, you know, to respond to you and to treat you. You know, I think a lot of people are missing that in their lives.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, you can really kind of attribute that to how people grew up as well, because similar to, like, I obviously grew up with you all as well, and, you know, I grew up in very close proximity with families that had children, so I grew up around, you know, guys, girls, like that whole thing. My parents did a really, really good job at helping me understand what is and what is not correct. I guess that's kind of subjective to, again, how you grew up. But what is and what is not correct in terms of social politeness, like, you just shouldn't be screaming at people, you shouldn't be cussing people out, you know what I mean? I think if you didn't grow up with that kind of structure, that kind of social structure where you're growing up around people, you're growing up interacting with people, because I grew up an only child, so like I interacted with a lot of adults a lot of the time. So I'm obviously not going to be talking to adults the same way that I would speak to my peers, because that's just not appropriate. Not that anything that I would have said was wrong, that just was not appropriate for that situation. So if you didn't grow up with, again, that kind of structure, then you don't know. But I feel like ignorance is not an excuse, because I feel like you should have some kind of sense of, this isn't really correct, or I'm not seeing a whole lot of people do this, so perhaps I should not do that. Because at the end of the day, you should treat people how you would like to be treated. And when it comes to relationships and men pursuing women, or even pursuing men, if you're pursuing someone in a sexual manner, you need to think, would I like to be pursued this way? Or would I like to be courted? I would like to be treated like a lady. Hello? I feel like that. You know what I mean? It's just a manner of mutual respect and understanding, and social understanding, and I feel like a lot of that has been lost.
I understand what you're saying as well. I think I have a different experience for the three of you, because you two grew up with a sister, you grew up by yourself, I grew up with a brother. But the difference is, well, not so much of a difference, but it's kind of a similarity. There was no conversation. When it comes to relationships between boys and girls, I was taught by television. In other words, VeggieTales. And every biblical show you can ever think of. On top of like Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, things of that nature. But like the overarching theme that I got from some of these things, especially the more biblical shows, was you're showing respect to... Oh,
You okay?
you all right?
You good?
You respect whoever you're talking to at any given point.
Right.
And much like you, I always was around adults because my parents hang out with, I have adults, they don't hang out with children. So, yeah, that's what parent does. So, when I'm talking with adults, it's like you treat them with even more respect.
Right.
Hello, present yourself. Hello, my name is Andrew. What should I address you as? Or how is your day going so far? Happy Sabbath, it's good to see you. Blah, blah, blah. And you translate all those things you do, the adults, with your peers.
Yeah.
And everything should be hunky-dory, but sometimes you have individuals that weren't raised that way.
Right.
And they treat you, not the way that you want to be treated. Right. But even in those circumstances, you don't, resort to nothing and being rude.
Yeah.
You continue with what you were taught, which is treat them the way you'd want to be treated. Because
people adjust to how you treat them and how they treat you. So if they come up to you off the cuff, they're like, hey, relax.
Yeah.
Just be calm. Then they will adjust to that, hopefully, and relax and be calm, and then you're good to go.
But another thing is, like, there was no distinguishing factor between boys and girls when it came to conversations, but I had to realize that on my own. I mean, of course, I understood from social constructs that girls are different than boys. You know, boys have penises, girls have vaginas, and then there's a whole bunch of different brain chemistry going on, so you treat them differently. Yeah, but the way I see it is like, yeah, you're different than me, but at the same time, like, you're the same in the sense of I'm not going to disrespect you like I would Gabe over there. Like, I'm not disrespecting him, so why would I disrespect you? There's no sense in doing that just because you're different gender. So yeah, there's that. And then when it comes to dating, like we were talking about, oh man, that's a whole other thing. Well, first off, we don't date men over here. You do, but the three of us, we don't do that. So I had to make sure you guys knew that. When it comes to dating women, you keep that same mentality of respect, but at the same time, it's like you have to have even more when you're going about who you're trying to date, because I don't even know how to phrase it. I really don't know where I'm going with this. But
I think it's a sense of class. Like, we've lost class.
Yes.
As a society in general.
Absolutely have lost class.
Yes. I'm not going to approach a woman that I would want to date the same way I would approach a friend that's a girl.
Right.
Well, in the sense of like, hey, how you doing? Like, it's not casual. I can be casual with you after I've secured the bag.
Right.
But before, you know, after I made it clear we're not just friends, it's not casual anymore. I'm making my thoughts clear to you, like, hey, I want to pursue you romantically, and if there are no problems, let's move forward to the next step. And, you know, after dating, what comes after that? Marriage, because I don't date to fool around. I think that's stupid, but, you know, there's some people that think that's fun, and I just don't understand why they do that. But
I think maybe from the other perspective of just dating, just to kind of like date, maybe it's dating to kind of understand what you would want to find in a partner to marry.
Okay. But then that sounds like a trial period for Sprint or T-Mobile. Like, yeah, 3 months. If this doesn't work out, bye. You can go for someone else. Like, I would say you go for someone in hopes that it's going to work out.
Right.
And if you find things in that person that you don't like core beliefs, then you break things off. But if there's nothing wrong, I'm not going to say, your free trial's ended.
I think one of the biggest problems I see in dating culture these days is that people don't try to work things out. Like, I've seen so many relationships go down the drain because people see like one small thing that they're like, oh, and they're like, oh, like, I just have to end it here. Like, it's just, and it concerns me because I'm like, you know, when you get married, you know, this is a commitment you're making for life, and you can't just sit down and say, oh, you know, here's one small thing, or here's one big thing that you're doing that I don't necessarily like and I don't necessarily agree with, and we're not going to sit down and try to work it out together. I don't see enough people in their relationships actively trying to work things out, you know, actively trying to come to a compromise or come to a consensus on how we're going to move forward and deal with whatever situation that presents us. And so when people get into turbulent times with their partner, whoever that is, their spouse, whoever that is, you know, there's nothing for them to stand on because they have no idea how to make things work or how to, like, you know, go forward.
There's so much like misinformation I feel like guys are fed in terms of just like how to pursue women. College has made me realize that firsthand, when you realize like there are some people that think like you need to have a roster, then there are some people that think having a roster is wrong. Some people that think like, oh, if you talk to one woman, you're setting yourself up for failure, and there's other people that think like, oh, and there's just so much misinformation out there. And I think a lot of people are just genuinely confused. We go to the world for our clarity. So when we're confused, it's like, oh, well, what is everyone else doing? Or what is, instead of like really thinking and praying it through.
Where can we go in the Bible that would help us in this instance? Because I know we talk a lot about marriage in the Bible, but it really doesn't talk about dating or courting.
I got you. So Proverbs, okay, I don't remember where. But there's a verse that says, I was ready to quote, I think I was going to say it's Proverbs 31. I don't remember.
Proverbs 31, that's the virtuous woman.
What's the verse that says, blessed is a man who finds a good wife?
That's not 31.
That's something else, right? But the Bible says, blessed is a man who finds a good wife. I find that verse so interesting because the Bible doesn't say find a woman and make her your wife. The Bible says, blessed is he who finds a good wife. And what that tells me is you can be a wife before you are somebody's wife, right? You
Proverbs
being
18.
Thank you, Proverbs 18. You being her husband is possessive. You being a husband is an adjective that is being used. Yeah, there's a difference between possession and position. Thank you, Ethan. So you being someone's husband is them possessing you. You being a husband is the position that you're in. So I think the question you need to ask yourself is this preparing me for marriage? If it is not preparing you for marriage, then you shouldn't be doing it, regardless of whether or not you're single or in a relationship, because you are practicing. Like, what you do now is you're practicing for the future. Like, you don't just suddenly flip a switch. I think that's the craziest thing I've seen. People are like, oh, I'll get it straight when I meet the girl, or I'll snap out of this whole phase when I meet the guy. Like, that's not how it works. You practice for things. So like, as a guy, if you know that you're not going to talk to 10 women while you're married, then don't practice that, because you ought to be a husband right now. You ought to be a wife right now. And so that's my biblical counsel. And that's something that the Holy Spirit taught me very recently. Coming out of this school year, like, I really had to think and reflect, like, okay, God, what does your word say on this? Because, and the confusion thing is personal, because for a long time, like, I felt confused. Because I was like, okay, some people will tell you talk to people. Some people will tell you don't talk to people. Some people will say men aren't supposed to pursue. Some other people will say men do pursue. And I was like, okay, God, clearly everyone has their own opinion. But what are you telling me? And that's when I realized, like, are you being a husband? Are you being a wife? And it's really that simple. And even as that relates to pursuit, right? A husband, I think another misnomer that we have, and I think this is why most relationships fail, is because people stop pursuing their partner when they get in a relationship with them. You're supposed to pursue your partner until the day they die.
What does that look like, though?
Okay, everything you did while you were dating, don't stop when you're married. Everything that you did to get this girl to be your girlfriend, don't stop when she becomes your girlfriend. Like, she became your girlfriend because she liked those things, right? He wanted to ask you out because he liked those things. If you wrote them letters, keep them coming. You know what I'm saying? If you had those romantic date nights, like, don't stop. And I think a lot of people think that when they get the thing, like, I've reached it, I'm here, I don't have to work anymore. And a lot of people are dissatisfied because they get into a relationship and now it's like they're with a completely different person. Because the magic and the zeal and the charisma that was there is suddenly evaporated because she's no longer, or he's no longer, the shiny new thing. And so don't ever stop pursuing. It's really, I mean, I don't know. I think when the Lord showed me that, it convicted me of a lot of things in life. And it made me realize, like, wait, you know, and obviously no one's perfect, but it convicted me and it made me realize, like, there is a godly way to pursue relationships. We just don't talk about it. And the reason there's so little literature and there's so little rhetoric on it is because as Christians, we avoid it.
Okay, so one thing I would like to say, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you watching, we are going to talk about this with our children when we have them, because I'm pretty sure you're going to be having kids very soon, aren't you? Oh, not you. But yeah, I mean, like, if we need to have more of these conversations as families, as brothers, as sisters, as communities, because you'll have individuals looking online for how to, you know, do a whole bunch of stuff that they really shouldn't be. Male, like beta, sigma, for what? Because they don't know, because we're not telling them, because we're not teaching them, because we never had these conversations. So let's not continue the same thing that happened to us with, you know, the next generation. So with that, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great and wonderful evening.